Alright, what is up everybody? Welcome back to EB Reacts. It's been a minute since I put anything on the channel. We're about to do something I've only done one other time on my on any of my channels when I've done reactions to music. I'm about to look at Oliver Anthony in Richmond, north of Richmond, and but I'm gonna go a little bit in depth with some of this because it seems to be an anthem for working people, and it's got people that it's got other folks kind of pissy and kind of cherry picking lyrics from the song without taking in the totality and the tone of it, which leads me to think we'll get to it. But we're about to take a look at Oliver Anthony and Richmond, north of Richmond. Now, I love straight off the bat, I love the title because Richmond, north of Richmond, politicians in D.C. So it's so yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. There's going to be a lot of stoppages in this, a lot of stoppages, and I'll just say this: I'll say this, if you come to the channel, you're looking for reactions and you're looking for something negative to say, that's cool. Say whatever negative thing you're going to say, but at least listen to the point of view from somebody who's worked 60, 80 hours a week and still struggled trying to support a family. So, and that was, let's say, I've been doing YouTube for 4 years now, and we still struggle, but yeah, but I've been on that for over 30 years, the blue collar grind. So yeah,
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away.
So I love the fact that he starts it off talking about working his life away, working overtime hours for bullshit pay, because you take and work overtime, and for me, whenever I was working, I loved to take and work overtime because it meant I had more money coming in. But on the flip side of that, it meant I had more money that was being taxed because let's say you make $15 an hour, you get paid time and a half. You're taking and getting $22, $50, $23 an hour. You take and work 20 hours, 30 hours, or 40 hours at that pay rate, at $23, $50, $24 an hour. Well, then that next level of money that you're making gets taxed at an even higher level than what your base 40-hour pay. So for working 20, 30, 40 hours for $7, an hour, $8 an hour more, just so you could try to take and either have some money put back or pay some bills that you're behind on or that are coming due, or whatever the case may be. The government eats so far into it that it almost, you have to take, it feels like you have to take and work it just so you can stay ahead, instead of being able to take and pay your bills with that 40-hour paycheck. And the thing is, if you're single, if you're trying to own something, you're going to subsist on the bare minimum of stuff. Because if you're renting, holy crap, renting is expensive, because not only do you got to pay the rental fee, but then you got lights. You got to buy yourself food, which thankfully it's only one person. If you want to watch any kind of TV, well, that's going to be another kind of fee, right? You got to communicate with folks if they want to call you into work, or you need to take and call mom and pops or something like that. Well, then you're going to have a phone of some kind, and you can get a landline, but if you're out and about and somebody needs to get a hold of you, so you're going to have that cell phone bill. And these are things that, while TV is not essential, unless you hunt and fish all day, which also require freaking money, you're stuck basically working. And that's not life. But that's what you're stuck doing, is you're basically having to work so you can just afford to live. I don't care if you're single, and even more so if you've got a family. Because 9 times out of 10, if you got a spouse, I don't know where you live at, but where I live at, my wife stayed at home because her, if she'd have went to work, most of her salary, we might have had $30 out of a paycheck, $40 out of a paycheck, from her working somewhere, and it would have went to childcare. Again, you're working basically to subsist. That's it. There's no life involved in it. So working overtime hours for bullshit pay, and let's go back a sec.
Get paid so I can sit out here and waste my life away. Drag back home and drown my troubles away.
So he can waste his life away, drag back home, and drown him. So, you know, basically console himself with whiskey or whatever, because it's really all you got time to do if you're working like that. And that's what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like. So I completely get that struggle.
Back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you.
People like me, people like you. He's talking about people that are working and trying to survive. That's everybody. That is everybody. So you're not part of the rich men north of Richmond. You're part of it, unless you've got, you know, a couple $1 million saved up. So doing a little bit of research on this fella, I understand he took and, you know, was a factory worker, and he's took and now he's trying to start a farm. He's got 90 acres. You take a look at the prices. 90 acres in West Virginia is a lot cheaper than 90 acres here in South Carolina. That's for damn sure. By about $600,000 cheaper. So
I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is. Living in the new world with an whole soul.
Living in a new world with an old soul. And it seems like, you know, we're sold on the American dream as people, but these days it seems like you're not going to make that dream. You're not going to take and be able to acquire that dream. Because it's one thing to own a home, and it's one thing to, you know, it's one thing to be able to own a home or whatever, but if you're having to take and work completely and you can't even enjoy that home, then what's the purpose of it? You know, you got people that, unless you work at a company and you've got some time in, a lot of times you're gonna struggle. It don't matter. And it seems like even the people that have been at places for years now, especially if you're blue collar, it doesn't matter. It's the inflation is almost it's outpacing your salary, it seems like, unless you're in a position of like leadership somewhere, like you've worked up to supervisor or superintendent or something of that nature.
With an whole soul, these rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do.
And he's right on that. It seems like our politicians want to take and have total control over everything that we do, and they want to be able to police what we're thinking and what we're saying. So if something comes out that's not, you know, part of the popular opinion of the moment, where you're going to get crucified for it, and you know, get sent to everything but re-education camps at this point. And just, it's the whole truth of the matter. And you can see it with the way they did with Twitter, with what they're doing with TikTok and stuff like that, trying to control narratives and things like that. And it's just, oh, you can't say anything against the vid, and you know, the science that was paid for by these politicians. So, because I don't remember seeing very many people walking around a Walmart in the height of it wearing N100 masks. There's always those cloth masks that, you know, don't exactly fit and have the stuff up, the spaces up here to where all that stuff comes out. And if there ain't good ventilation, you definitely gonna catch it. Because, yeah. The droplets don't just go right there in front of your mouth. But that's besides the point. But, hey, you say anything against it, we'll deplatform you. Because that's misinformation.
What you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men,
Dollar ain't shit because it's taxed to no end. Yeah, because you're taxed on the money that you earn. You're taxed whenever you go to spend that dollar that you've earned. And if you buy something, you're taxed on what you buy. So, like, if you go buy a car, not only have you been taxed on the money you used to buy the car with, you know, you got taxed, that salary got taxed. You got to pay a tax buying the car, and then once you get that car or you get a home, well, then you got to pay a yearly tax on that home or that car. dollars tax knowing is worthless at this point.
North of Richmond. I wish politicians would look out for miners, and not just miners on an island somewhere, Lord.
So that's definitely Epstein Island reference right there. And we've seen all kind of politicians on that list, right? Yeah, so... and I love how he's not going after one party or the other. It's Richmond, north of Richmond, which means politicians. The politicians are the problem, and politicians are on both sides. That's one of the other things I've seen that I'm like, I don't get it. I don't go, oh, this is a right wing. People are going to take and push something. You can't fix who pushes something. But Richmond, north of Richmond, that's politicians. The politicians, that's both sides. Both sides have politicians. Richmond, north of Richmond, and there's politicians. All the politicians on the right hand side, last I checked, they're all rich and they're all making policy that screw us all over. So, yeah. But the nod to Epstein Island there, whew, good Lord. Because the thing about it is, if a common man, or even, somebody that's not well connected, even if they're a millionaire, if they're not well connected and they, had stuff going on like Epstein had going on, well, you'd be in prison. You'd be in prison for a long time, but if you're part of the system, well, you get sent to a spot where nobody's ever been able to commit suicide before and commit suicide. But hey, what do I know?
Out for miners, and not just miners on an island somewhere, Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds.
And see, this section right here, the fact there's people in the street with nothing to eat. The obese are taking in milk and welfare. 5'3" shouldn't have to, 300 pounds shouldn't be paying for your bags of fudge rounds. See, the thing about it is he's right. So there's nothing wrong with needing assistance. There's nothing wrong with needing welfare. Like, the problem is whenever you make it a lifestyle, right? Because working 60, 70 hours, 80 hours a week, you still struggle. So you're taking and working. The problem for many folks is you can work 60 hours a week and still be poor as hell, because number one, if you're working that many hours, it's not guaranteed that you got a good pay while you're working at 60 hours. So you could be barely scraping by. I've done it numerous times, taking and making $10 an hour, working 60 hours. I can't afford to take and get the insurance that's offered to me through the company, because if I do, well, I might take and choose between gas and car and food on the table to eat. And they couldn't afford Obamacare neither, because hell, I can get this plan for $120 a month, but it's $9,000. It's a $14,000-$15,000 premium before they even take and cover anything, and $60 co-pays. Well, where the fuck is that any good? So, having lived this fucking life to where you're barely scraping the fuck by, and you don't qualify for food stamps, which would help because you're having trouble taking and getting groceries. You're having to make everything stretch as far as possible, and even taking and using some food banks around the area. That shouldn't be the fucking case, but you got people out there that don't fucking work at all, that are taking and abusing the fucking system. It's one thing if you're on fucking food stamps, because if you're poor, you know what I'm about to talk about. You know people that've got food stamps and sell it for drugs. But on the flip side of that, you know motherfuckers that are also on food stamps and take and sell it, or take and be like, hey, I'll take and get you $6 on my food stamps if you take and pay, $6 on my light bill. Because the job they're working at, they're not making enough to take and be over the amount that says you're above the poverty line, and so you can barely afford what the fuck you're getting, and you have to take and do stuff like that. We all know people who have done this shit. Both sides of that. It's the ones that are taking and can work, but mash their fucking ass and can't work. How is it that the motherfucker that's working that could use the food stamps can't get the motherfuckers, but the motherfuckers that could work but don't work, but isn't working and refuses to work gets to sit on the system? There's people in the street with nothing to eat while the obese are milking welfare. There you go, right the fuck there, straight from somebody who has lived this fucking life before and still struggles. Granted, I could, if I make too much still to take and go use welfare, even if I feel like we might take and need it for a month because things are down. But actually having been there where you're making $10, $12 an hour and you're working 60 hours a week, you barely put anything on your table, but you know motherfuckers that can work and refuse to. Yeah, I completely get what he's saying. It's not the system that's the problem. It's the people. It's the fact that there's people who could use it, but they can't because they consider to make too much money. That's what that whole thing is wrapped up into right there. But if you haven't lived it, you're not going to know it. So you're coming from a place of actual privilege. So just breaking that down for people who don't quite or have never lived it.
Taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down.
And the nod to mental illness and suicide. Well, the suicides, young men putting themselves on the ground because all this damn country seems to do is kick you down. He's not wrong, because men, the suicide rates among men are high, and if you're already struggling and you're trying to take and work and you're trying to take and provide, or you're trying to take and make a living, and you can't seem to get ahead and you're struggling, but you're not struggling enough to where you can actually get any kind of assistance. You feel like you've got no way out, and people take their lives. And this, there's one part of the song that pisses me off and breaks my heart at the same goddamn time, because he's right. The whole song is right, and this is one of the reasons why this whole song has become a working man's anthem.
Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me. People like you, wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is, living in the new world.
And the other thing is, living in the new world, before, there's always been struggle in this country, but you've also been able to take and work and enjoy life some here. Like, there's a difference between working hard for what you have in life, right? And being able to take and make it through, but it's a different story whenever you're taking and working. And it's something I love that boomers taking all the fucking time. Well, I took and motherfucker, you bought your house for $30,000. Shut the fuck up. Like, it's different. It's totally fucking different. You worked at the factory for 30 fucking years, and yeah, you got a decent pension out of the shit, but you bought your house for $30,000. You had a $200 fucking mortgage. Motherfuckers are paying $1,500 for a single bedroom place. And we're not talking about the city. We're talking about fucking 40 minutes outside of anything that resembles a city. Go get fucked. And it didn't used to be like that. Whenever I was 18 years old and I graduated high school, I was working at Walmart, and I personally could afford a one motherfucking bedroom apartment. But you can't do that now, because now you got to take and rent. You got to hope somebody's got a room for $600, much less a motherfucking place. But we're not living in a world where you can take and be sustainable on your own. You've got to have two incomes, and sometimes you got those two incomes are made up of 4 and 5 jobs. What? And it's one thing if you live in a city, things are going to be more expensive there. So I understand having to take in, work 3-4 jobs for a family if you're living inside the city itself, because things are going to be more expensive there. I don't agree with that either, but that's how things go. But whenever you don't live in some place like that, and you still got that, no, because that's not life. That's not living. They've made slaves of us all. They've just given us TV screens and goddamn phone screens so we don't take and realize none of that shit. I don't give a fuck where you're from. That's exactly what it's like. That's exactly what they've done, and that's exactly what they intend to do, because the more they've got us to where we have to take and work that way, and we have to either depend on them to subsist, or we try to take and make it on our own and have to fight tooth and nail. Well, then we can't pay attention to what the hell's going on, so we can't take and stand up against what they're trying to do. And not only that, the shit that they're taking and selling us with policy and with the media, because you can add the media to the rich men north of Richmond, because they're the mouthpieces for them fuckers. And that's what this song, and that's this new world, because it's not always been like that. I wish it wasn't like this. I wish it wasn't like this at all, but it is.
With an whole soul, these rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men north of Richmond. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
And that's the reason why that song is being viewed as a working man's anthem. Because if you work for a living, hell, even if you work at all, you know the feeling. You know you're living the struggle right now. Hell, we're all living the struggle right now. Unless you got $1 million in the bank, you're living that struggle. Because hell, even the middle class is taking and shrinking in the U.S. I'm sure it's shrinking worldwide, for that matter, right? This song right here hits on so many different points, and it's the rich men it's the politicians of the issue, the politicians, and I don't care what your background is. What have politicians actually done that have helped you? I don't care. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your background is, especially if you're an American. I don't care what your background is. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're Latino. I don't care if you're Asian. I don't care. What have the politicians done that have helped you personally? If I have to venture a guess, more than likely anything politicians have done, any policy has more than likely taken a big hit out of your paychecks. They've got us all taking a fight amongst one another for what fucking reason? So they can push their own agendas, so they can make sure that we don't take and have harmony as a people. Because hell, we all live the fucking struggle. Some to different degrees than others, but we all live a struggle. If you're working for a living, you're living that struggle. If you live in a city where industry has taken flight and went to China, or it's went to Mexico, you live in that struggle because, or if you live in a place where there's coal mines and the coal mine is shut down, you live in that struggle because now there's hardly any jobs. So the way to make money is either you take and bus yourself a couple of cities over, a couple of towns over to some place where there's work available, but then you're cutting into whatever money you would make because you got to take and bus yourself somewhere else, or you got to pay the gas money to take and go a couple of towns over. More than likely, that place that you could have work at it's got folks that have been there for a long time, so it's hard to take and get in. So either you're busting your chops at minimum wage, and then you got to take and use some kind of federal assistance or state assistance, if I had to venture a guess. So you're stuck in a place that's mired in poverty at this point. And what happens then? Well, most of the people around you are going to turn to drugs, selling them or doing them. Fucking, it's ubiquitous across. I don't give a shit what your background is. That's ubiquitous. It's a given. And these rich men north of Richmond, these politicians have ensured that this shit happens with their policy. And yet they want to take and pit us all against each other. Fuck all that shit. This song right here is a song that if you're going through it, you know it. You're going through it. It's for folks that are struggling and working to survive and dealing with the policies that these rich men have put on the backs of the people that are making that money for them. Hope y'all enjoyed this. Y'all be good to each other. Love yourselves. Peace.